All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Appreciate you guys coming in here at this 2:30 session. I'm really here to talk about live tiles. That was the title you saw, but in reality, that's kind of why I phrased this in a certain way. It's about getting your app tapped, right? Making a good first impression. So my name is Matt Heidinger. I'm a program manager on the new OS notifications team. So I own tiles and the APIs, what you're seeing today and then moving forward. I've been at Microsoft for a little while. Before that, I was doing a lot of app development, hopefully apps you've all used for some pretty top-tier customers. And been doing this space for a little while, and tiles were kind of important to me, and I'm excited to kind of talk about what we're delivering today as well as where we're going in the future. So this is a look at my start screen. You guys have seen them. I'll show you my Windows Phone one later. I think what's important about this screen is that I look at it as, I can see my emails. I know that I have 11 unread. Frankly, on Windows, I typically use this as my info snacking mode, where I'm just, I could do this, or I can fire up, say, Facebook.com and just kind of look at just what my friends are liking, just to kind of satisfy something enticing me to tap on it. Flipboard's obviously showing me something cool. I can see my stocks. So you guys have seen this. You understand it. But I think the really important thing is, how do you make sure that users want to pin you, right? That's really what I want to help get across here is we have some tile improvements I'm going to talk about, but as well as kind of some guidance on helping make sure that you really set a good first impression. So when I joined the team, I joined the notifications team, and frankly, I didn't realize we owned live tiles. I think of notifications as push notifications, and it was new to me that we owned tiles and we thought of it as a notification. And that kind of, it took me a while to grok that a tile is just a notification in the same way as a badge, or I'm sorry, a toast, where it wakes up your phone, you get a notification of something. But tiles are unique in that we have a unique delivery mechanism that not other platforms have. So you can send toasts, which will wake up your phone. It's a little annoying. If you take Groupon, for example, they have a great live tile. If they were sending you toasts every hour about the deal, a great new deal, we've seen that users will just uninstall that app. So finding the right delivery mechanism is super key, and tiles are a really unique way of just satisfying kind of that info urge. And what we're seeing from a research study we did on notifications is that users are they're bombarded with notifications. The average users get between 30 and 60. That typically includes email. So as notifications just get super pervasive across the industry as we see them spread to devices and accessories, like we're seeing watches and things, tiles are going to be another unique way of kind of servicing that information and getting it on other surfaces. And users are becoming very cognizant of the fact that they want to see their notifications in the right way, and that's kind of your challenge as app developers to make sure you're using the right notification in the right way. And tiles should absolutely play a part in that. Shouldn't be your only story, but it should play a part in it. So to get started, we offer today the Tile Template Catalog. I'll show you that in a little bit, but this is what you offer. It's a great starting point if you just know if one of these fits what your look should look like, if it's a social media app or a calendar app or reminders. These cover a huge array. There's 42 of them across Windows and Windows Phone, and these are great. And starting now with this release, the Tile Template Catalog is now converged with Windows and Windows Phone, and we now have, if I switch over to my PC real quick, I will show you. MSDN is now live with it. So this is the Tile Template Catalog. If you just go to bit.ly/Tile Template Catalog, we now show it's a perfect way to just kind of browse, see which will make sense. And you can see that the tiles look very similar across both platforms. So we have the peak templates on Windows. They do a slide. On Windows Phone, we do a front and back. So you can see, but wide tiles, for example, you will be able to do the people tile. I'll show in a little bit. But this is a great way to kind of see what the experience is going to look like across your both devices, and you will be able to send the exact same notification across them. So a little about those templates. So Windows Phone will accept all of the templates. So Windows has, I want to say 72 of them in total, from square to wide to the large square. We'll accept the templates on phone, but won't exactly render every field due to space limitations. We ignore today the square 310 by 310. So that's the huge template on Windows. You can send it, but Windows Phone won't support it this time. And Phone also has its own unique templates. So this was our previously called the iconic template. So you can still do this if this makes sense. If you want to look like the Mail app or the messaging app, the unique experience that we have, you can send these templates just to Windows. But something that's kind of important about what I want to talk about today is we understand not every brand, not every app fits into a template. We get that. MyFitnessPal is a great app. It has a great tile as well. Like, that is a really unique tile. Obviously, there's no MyFitnessPal template. Some stocks, our stock is doing significantly better since this was taken, but this is the Fidelity app. It's a great app. The Bloomberg app's another great one. It actually renders a nice chart on your tile. This is Nokia Here Drive Plus. This is an awesome tile too. It just kind of paints your commute, which is just a beautiful thing to see on your start screen. And something that I'm actually finally excited to announce, and you saw it in the keynote, as soon as you get blue on your phones, or sorry, Windows Phone 8.1 on your phones, when you go into Start, you'll now get Show More Tiles. So we'll add that third column, and we'll also let you choose a background. So this is a screenshot of my actual Start screen today. You can see many more tiles, a higher density. I don't feel guilty now pinning my alarm and actually knowing it because it doesn't take so much space on my phone. And if you scroll down, you can see my other collection of additional live tiles that I have. So I think this really opens the stage much more for users who want high density, and you just get more on your start screen. And it makes the phones look beautiful on the smaller phones. So hopefully you're convinced that you need a good tile, you need a good first impression. Let's talk about how we do it. WNS is the Windows Notification Service. It debuted with Windows 8, and it's a set of server-side and client-side APIs. So when you think of WNS, what we've now brought over to the phone, it's also the client-side API. So you might not be doing push notifications at all. We understand that, but think of like WNS as your WNS tiles. We have reliability improvements over NPN. WNS is a great service. It's scaling like crazy. It was built by a services team who has extensive background, decades of experience building scalable services. You also get SSL for free. So if you use NPN today, if you're a Windows Phone developer, and you understand that notifications should probably be encrypted that you're sending to the notification service, you just get it for free now. We don't make you manage an SSL certificate. This is a big win, we think. And now those same exact APIs are on Windows Phone, the identical ones. And that's going to bring us to our first demo pretty soon. So how can I send tile updates? Do I have to use push or whatever? We have local updates. So this is why your app is running. You can do this from a background task as well. So super simple API. You can do scheduled updates. So if you have an app in a scenario that's like, I want to update my tile Thursdays at 4 p.m., you can do that. Periodic's a great one that we're offering. This is my favorite new dead simple API that we're finally bringing to Windows Phone that people have been asking for a while. If you don't want to invest in a push service, but you need more, you don't want to build a high-level background task, we will pull a URL that just has to return the tile XML. We'll pull it every 30 minutes, every 12 hours. So that gives you a really reliable, lightweight way of pulling your server, what should this tile look like, every 30 minutes without you building a background task. And of course, we have push. So push is if your ESPN Score Center, for example, is a great tile, and they do rapid push. So if you see a score from a football game, that'll update usually within 5-10 seconds. Obviously, that's expensive infrastructure, so if you want to invest in that, please do. A new feature, though, we have for now bringing to phone is a raw notification to actually wake up a background task. So if you do client-side generation, we're going to show you, you can send push to trigger that. All of those mechanisms use the exact same payload to lay out your tile. And this is what that XML looks like. It's super simple. So if you want to do a medium tile that looks like that, you specify a tile with a visual element, and then there you have a binding for the template that you chose from our tile template catalog. This is tile square 150 by 150 text 01. And a practice you probably want to get in the habit of is sending both templates at the same time. So you don't know at runtime which tile size the user's pinned. They could have the small one, the medium square, or the wide one. So you want to send both those visuals so that we'll determine the right binding at runtime. Let's jump over to the machine that I have running and kind of take a look at how some of that looks. So hopefully you kind of get it started here, bump through the catalog, find one you think you like, and let's just go ahead and start this project. This is a new universal project. We're pretty excited to finally offer this. This app is obviously very simple, but every single line of code is completely shared. So what I'm going to do is show you, if you've done WNS development before, I'm going to go ahead and just pin that to my start screen. This is my tile. WNS is awesome because we get OAuth and we get SSL for free, but it's a bit cumbersome to test because you have to upload your app to the Dev Center. You have to have a Dev Center account. You have to upload it. You don't have to publish it, but that's how we generate the OAuth signature to match those accounts. Now we are introducing, in the emulator tools, as you open the tools, there's a new notifications tab, the notifications simulator, that lets you simulate the full push stack all locally through your emulator. This is beautiful. It'll hit breakpoints, for example. It literally simulates going through the whole WNS stack. And we've done some kind of smart things here to say, I'm going to send a tile update. Here's all the templates you could see in there. So let's just pick the first one, tile square block, and we'll just do, say, a 3 and Thursday. So let's try and create that calendar. So that should post a notification to the device. Within a few seconds, it should update. And you notice it looks similar to the calendar tile, but it's got my name is still in there. The brand of my app is still in there. So we can customize that on the visual element and say branding equals none. Send another update. And now we have exactly the people tile, or the calendar tile. Super simple. This payload, the same exact payload, will work on Windows. Looks exactly like the calendar you would see here, only in a small version. So this is pretty neat. You can customize the branding, turn that on and off. I can pick tile square text 03, send that one. And it just kind of shows you we have wrapping payloads. We have some that are a couple lines that just much more flexible than we had before. And now I'm going to show you a real kind of example. So you can just paste in the XML. You could save this however you want. So I'm going to go ahead and send this guy. And this should make it look like our iconic tile. And I also want to send in a badge update. So badge, we've now separated badges from the tile. So the badge itself, we also support glyphs now, which is pretty neat. So if you're, say, an app that doesn't have an accurate count, you just want to do an asterisk or, say, an exclamation point, you can now do that. So this, you can see if I resize this to all 3 tiles, this is exactly like my mail app, right? It's the same exact experience. The XML I sent can be seen here. So I'm sending all 3 templates, my tile square 71 template, my 150 by 150, that's the medium, and the wide one includes some text fields. So by passing in some images and some text, something neat here, you notice that I'm specifying logo.png for this image. If I wanted to recreate the kind of cute experience we have on messaging, where it's a smiley face when you have a 0, but it does a winky face when you have a 1, you could sync that in. You could use a different image, which is kind of neat. So this is a really great way to just kind of play with the notifications, play with the different templates, find one that kind of makes sense, and kind of go from there. So let's see another scenario of actually like in the app. How does some code work? So what I'm going to do first is do this pin and pull here. Actually, let me debug it so you can see what's going on. Pin and pull, if I look in my, so it says we're starting to pull this tile. So it created a new tile, secondary tile, and it says starting to pull this tile from this URL. So this is a service I have up in Azure. And here's the XML. So the same thing you would see here, I'm just generating on my server every time I F5, I'm passing in a time zone offset here so I can calculate the right time. So if you're, say, 8, it's now changed to 1:43 p.m. So all this is giving me is a tile template. And it's updating this tile. If this talk continues for the length that it should, we can come back in 30 minutes and see that it's updated, not from 2:42, but 30 minutes after that. And let's see what that code looked like. So I clicked my pin and pull button. You'll see I'm putting all this code in the shared project. I'm sure you've all saw the keynote with the universal projects. Everything in here is in the shared project, including my XAML. And you can see, I don't know if they made it super obvious, but you can toggle between the views. So I can show you what that XAML looks like in Windows, if it wants to scroll down. So let's see what that button actually did. Create a new tile ID. That's that GUID you see at the bottom. New tile ID. I've got a tile helper that's going to pin and pull. All this is doing is newing up a secondary tile. This is our secondary tile type. We're passing in some arguments. You can take a look at those. Tile ID, a display name, some deep link arguments. If you have secondary tiles, it's a good idea to make your app behave differently, right? So if you tap on it, your app's going to launch. You'll get those deep link parameters, then you make your app act accordingly. Weather, for example, if they pin a specific city, you want your app to behave correctly. We're setting some visual elements, like the wide logo and the background color. And then we're setting up a callback that's going to happen once that tile is pinned. So in Windows Phone, when I pin a tile, I can do this forever, we suspend your app and navigate you to the start screen. It's a user experience thing we do. So you have to run some code on suspend that will actually fire up polling. So all that's going to do is I've got this static delegate here called onNewTilePinned, and I'm just going to call this function startTilePolling. The API is incredibly simple. Tile update manager, create a tile updater for the tile I just created. Here's my polling URI. You can see that's just a random string I'm generating with a random GUID for tile ID. And I'm saying, updater, let's go ahead and start a periodic update, pull this URI. I'm saying every half hour. No background task to write, just super, super simple stuff to pull for some XML, update the entire tile. You can pick any template. You can do an image, dynamic image generation this way, and make sure your tile is kind of always up to date in a reliable way. Background tasks can be fragile. They're not guaranteed to run. They won't run in battery saver, for example. So this is a pretty exciting and very easy API. And the same exact code obviously runs on Windows. So if I set this as my startup project, you'll see a slightly different experience. You actually get a preview in Windows. You can choose a size. I can even pick a name for it. And I say pin to start. In Windows, the experience is actually to stay in the app. So there's no suspending, so we do some slightly different stuff there. But if I scroll over to my start screen, same exact tile, same exact appearance, hitting that same exact XML. So let's run back to the slides. Super quick look. This means brand new stuff for phone. I've harped on a lot of this stuff so far. The notification similarity, really excited about. Periodic polling, really excited about. Tile notification queue, I didn't demo this right now, but in Windows Phone, previously you had a front and a back. We now have a tile notification queue, and those front and the back had to have a certain appearance, right? You couldn't really customize it. Now we have a queue where we will cycle through 5 notifications, and all 5 of them can have completely different appearances. So you see this on a lot of the Windows tiles today, the way they cycle through, and they all have different looks. So same queue, same cycling. On Windows, you get the slide animation. On Windows Phone, you get the flip animation. But more than just a front and a back, you get up to 5. Expiration support. This is pretty cool. You think it's kind of simple. By default, tiles will expire if they're done locally, never. If they're via push or periodic, they're going to expire after 3 days. We assume most contents. That way, you can specify never. But this is important for, and I wish we had it in our services today, because I'm not super into sports, but a lot of my friends are. And an app I previously worked on for a very high-profile sports site has a great tile. And if it's the end of the season, say the Super Bowl, and your team suffered a pretty bad loss, you have to stare at that loss on your tile every day until you unpin it. It's a bit of a bummer, and now we have expiration support, so a little win, but it's actually pretty compelling. Raw notifications can wake a background task. And we have glyph badges. I didn't show that, but if you don't want just a count, you want the asterisk or attention to say, hey, your service is offline, for example, whatever your product does, you can now do badges. And we have more templates that exist on both phones, both platforms. So a quick checklist to make sure you did everything. You can send the same XML to both platforms. You should include all tile sizes at once. You saw that. You should use versions and fallbacks. I didn't really talk about that, but with each new version of the platforms, we're introducing more templates. You can specify fallbacks to make sure that the same exact XML works on, say, Windows 8. If they haven't updated to Windows 8.1, the template names are a little different, so you can make sure you're sending the same XML, and it'll work across Phone 8.1, Windows 8.1, and Windows 8. And there's just a quick tip. You want to put the Windows Phone templates first in your XML, because we'll find the first one that matches. So if you pick tile square text01, for example, we're going to match that first, and you put the Windows Phone one separate. That's a scenario where if you have the same app on Windows and Windows Phone, you just want to use different templates, one for Windows and, you just want a different appearance for some reason. If you want to know more about notifications, please see my colleagues, Thomas Fennell and Jorge Rostrom. You'll unfortunately have to obviously watch it online. That session was yesterday at 5:30. But they really go into notifications in WNS and all the improvements we made to the platform notifications in general. So I talked earlier on how to custom draw your tiles and how I can help you do that. There are 3 basic ways you can obviously do this. If you want to generate in the cloud, which is awesome if you have the server resources to do this, any bitmap generator will work. There's a weird, maybe it's not weird, but WPF works in Azure, so just something I discovered. So you can literally kind of use the same XAML, put it in Azure, use render target bitmap, which will generate a PNG for you, and then send that down. So that's kind of cool. You can literally generate the PNGs on the server. You could obviously use any server technology you want for that. Windows Phone, we're now releasing a XAML rendering background task. So there's a specific background task that actually lets you render XAML to a PNG. And if you're in Silverlight, you've always been able to use writable bitmap. You'll continue to be able to use writable bitmap. And this just allows you to break free of our templates. You literally just pick a template that's a solid PNG. You have every pixel to draw on. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to show you how to do the XAML rendering background task. Let me make sure you can see what you're looking at. Weird. For this demo, I will need random audience participation. If you, sir, would give me a number between 0 and 50. 25. And if you can give me another number that's lower than that one. You. 16. Perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. So this is actually, I'll come back to the code. I just want to put those numbers in really quick. So I'm going to launch this. I'll show you what we're doing, and then I'll come back to the code. So this is a sample we wrote. We're going to register a background task to run. Register that background task. It's currently set to be a time zone trigger. So we have a number of triggers, a time trigger, right? If you want to run your background task every 30 minutes, if you want to register for push notifications, so you can, I love the push notification raw stuff, because I can just say you can write any code to run on the phone you want and just send a push notification, a very simple one. This uses the time zone trigger. But I'm also going to show you something that is super beneficial if you're debugging your background task. And that's if you look in lifecycle events, you have to right-click on the toolbar, check debug location. It's a semi-odd name. That's going to give you this new toolbar here. And you have a drop-down of lifecycle events. So this is how you can trigger and debug suspending your app. But we also detect any registered background task. So you can invoke them right away. So you'll see if I actually put a breakpoint here. it's called my app tile updater. I'm going to hit that. It's going to fire. It is C++. So you'll see I just hit my background task. I'm going to hit continue. I'm going to show you what the tile looks like now. Here's a medium. Let's make it wide. And now we saw in the Super Plate Showdown, the Seattle Warbirds versus the Waterbirds versus the Denver Cowboy Carriers. Obviously, due to IP restriction, I couldn't use the real names. But it was a game that went 25-16. So we, just to prove the random numbers we picked, we generated this using XAML, generated a PNG, and saved it, and Seattle sports better and gets points harder than the other team. So it's a pretty compelling looking tile. Some super simple XAML. So the C++, I'll be the first to admit, I am not a C++ developer. This stuff sort of freaks me out, but it's our guidance that we're offering. It's not a requirement to write your background task, your XAML rendering ones in C++, but we recommend it for just memory reasons. It takes quite a bit of memory to spin up the XAML runtime and then create that PNG, especially if you're going to do multiple tiles. So if you have multiple tiles pinned and you want to update all of them in the single background task, C++ is just lighter weight without spinning up the CLR. But the code is really, you're going to download this sample. We'll publish it up. This sample might actually be live as of today. It's an MSDN sample. The code you don't even really have to worry about. All it's doing is taking this custom tile.xaml file, so you'll even see a designer fire up. So I can build this entire thing in the designer, what my tile looks like, and I can tweak this any way I want without having to worry about, obviously, I don't know why I can't scroll it for some reason. But you can see that's my tile right there, and I don't have to worry about changing the C++. I do it the one time, and then it'll just be fine. So this is pretty neat, and I think this is a pretty super easy example of just showing how easy background tile generation is. If I have WP, depending on how crazy you get, that same XAML should work if I paste it, say, in my WPF service on the cloud. If I wanted to generate this PNG and not waste phone resources, I could do that. And say in Silverlight to use writable bitmap, same exact idea. So what about Windows Phone Silverlight 8.1? Obviously, we have a lot of Silverlight apps out there. Can you use any of this stuff? And the answer is absolutely. I probably wouldn't mention it on here if it was bad news. Absolutely, you can use this stuff. WNS, the full server-side stack and the client-side stack are now on the phone, and all those WinRT APIs work. You have to do some work in certain scenarios. Scenario breakdown is super easy. If you are creating a new Silverlight 8.1 app, use WNS and the new tile stuff. We're still obviously supporting building new, if you don't need to use the new Universal project, you want to build a Silverlight app for whatever reason, Do it. You'll be able to use this stuff super easily. It won't be a problem. If you're upgrading your Silverlight AO app and want to add notifications for the first time, use the new stuff. Won't be an issue at all. The only time you have to do a little bit of thinking is if you're upgrading your app and you use MPN today. So use it for the push infrastructure, use the Silverlight APIs, which were shelltile.create, for example. We will migrate your tiles, so don't worry about that. You have to do a little bit of work to convert them to the new templates. So if you're using the Silverlight stuff, the old templates that you had, like flip tile, for example, doesn't exist anymore. So you have to upgrade those. And you'll have to move your code from shelltile to the WinRT stuff. Flipping between them is as easy as this. If you open up your Manifest Designer today, and you've right-clicked and said upgrade to Windows Phone 8.1, you just have a notification service dropdown. And we put a little warning or information down there that when you use WNS for tiles, you need to start defining your tiles in the package app manifest. So the WMAP manifest no longer is where you define your tiles, so you move stuff there. Super easy stuff. But what if you wanted to stick with MPN and .NET? Everything still works. Nothing's been deprecated. You won't necessarily get a ton of new stuff. You won't need to rewrite or change anything. You get some nice behavioral advantages. Bind to shelltile today, if you want to download images remotely, you have to specify kind of a whitelist of URIs that we allow. We're no longer enforcing that. We realized that was sort of a needless restriction. And the notification simulator works now. It detects if you're on MPN, and you can use the same exact MPN XML payload to send through the simulator if you want to simulate the MPN stack. So some improvements, but you won't be able to use the new templates and the new stuff like that until you migrate. So let's do a quick demo, just showing some stuff in Silverlight. So I'm hoping to ship this app. This is actually the app we used. You'll have to ignore, so let me change the font size. You'll have to look past my resharper underlines for some reason. That code is fine. It will, it'll compile just fine. So here's that same API. Again, ignore the underlines. I'm saying var tiles new secondary tile. I'm setting up a simple callback. As soon as my tile's pinned, I'm going to use this XML. And then I'm just going to call the tile updater. And I'm also setting a badge. I'm using a badge updater to set a 2. So if I run this guy real quick. And again, I'm hoping to ship the full source code of this app. I don't know exactly when. There might be some stuff we have to rip out of it. This was the app we were kind of using when we were, let me restart the emulator. As we were testing the platform on Silverlight, obviously there's a pretty big API service. So let me restart that emulator real quick. And here's my Silverlight 8.1 app coming up. So I've got a bunch of stuff. I can test push. I can test polling. I'm going to do this poll timestamp really quick. Same exact code you saw before. It's hitting the same exact URI. It's showing you the exact same template all in Silverlight. I can scroll over to local. I've got some stuff. So I can create an iconic tile, for example. So here's my iconic tile. You saw all the same stuff that you would expect to be able to do. Here's my iconic one. New animations. We can create some Square 7071. This is actually a feature in Windows today. A relatively minor limitation today in Windows is that you can't actually update your small tile. So the small one, the very little one, is supposed to be a static icon. You can't send push to it. In Windows Phone, there's a new template called 71 by 71 image. Now you can update that one in Phone. So if you're, for example, the AccuWeather app who actually renders a PNG in that small tile, you can still do that now in Phone. This is one of the templates that we're going to bring back to Windows, obviously, in the next update. If I go back to SL notifications, I do want to show one thing that I know people have been asking for. Oh yeah, restart the emulator. Let me relaunch that guy. At the end of the day, anything you could do in Windows, you can do here. Anything you could do in Silverlight, you can continue to do. A lot of work kind of went into this, the MPN stack. So if I pin our team, I'll show you that guy. We'll hit a breakpoint here. This is something people have been asking for a while. I'm going to make this guy wide. We have the full people tile. So this template, if you send it to Windows, you'll get what their variation of this. So same template. Again, we get slightly different UX, but at least we can kind of cycle through. If you've been wanting to use the people tile, I know a lot of people have. We finally brought that one. That's just called this tile wide image collection. Very simple stuff. So I'm going to head back to PowerPoint. So if you want to know more about Windows Phone Silverlight, please see Sam in a Harini session. Also, yesterday at 5:30, you'll have to kind of watch that one online, but session 2, 517. And I think the last piece of advice I need to give everybody is about scaling and localizing assets. So you've seen that Windows runs on a huge range of devices, screen sizes, and DPIs, including pianos in the future or today. So why do you need to scale your assets? If you want to make sure your tiles look great on all these devices, it's actually really simple. We do a lot of plumbing for you. So use that tile XML shown at the bottom. Here's my solution structure. I've got logo, scale 100, scale 180, scale 240. Based on those naming conventions alone, we will figure out what tile size we will render needs on the platform. So you just have to provide them. You don't need to specify logo, scale 180 in your XML. If you want to be a great developer and make sure your app is fully accessible, for example, on high contrast phones, don't change the XML. Just add those images to your solution structure in a folder named contrast black. Same with contrast white. If your needs are super localizable, for example, you have a branding that you really want to make sure looks great in all languages, add another folder. For example, this is the Japanese character set, and add those folders inside there. Your XML never changes. As you start to evolve and support more devices, you literally just have to add assets to your solution structure, and the app will continue to behave just fine. So what about moving beyond apps? We have a new feature that debuted with Windows 8, which is live tiles for websites. So I'm going to flip that one right over to a demo as well. Fire up my emulator here. I'll go to IE. I will go to CNN, for example. Pin to start. I'll do the same thing on this IE. Pin to start. And I can even go to MSN. Pin that one to start. If you look on Windows, these should update pretty quick. Some of them have images. We'll come back to MSN. If I look at CNN here, you can see CNN has a beautiful layout. MSN actually does images often. So if this is a scenario that makes sense to you, it's really, really easy to do. So MSN, if we make it wide, they can specify, I even support a wide tile. Now I get images. These are just websites. Just an IE, just pinning a website, super easy to do, and just, we're getting the notification queue, we're flipping. If you look back in Windows, same thing, but we don't get the flip, we get the slide. But it's the same exact XML. We never contacted MSN or CNN or any of them. When we brought this over to phone, it just worked, and we have a slightly different experience where we flip. But you can see the templates all there. So this is kind of cool. Let's talk about how we do that. Couple meta tags at the top of your page. So you can specify the application name, a tile color you like. If you want to support wide tile, you just have to specify the MS application-wide tile logo. And then you set up this final one is just setting up some polling frequency and where you want to get that XML. So CNN, MSN, a whole bunch of other sites like ESPN, there's a whole bunch. But actually, if you go to pinsite.com, we list all the sites that support this feature. And all you have to say is a lot of them just actually use XSD transforms and transform their RSS feed into the tile XML. And it just works. You literally now have a tile that will pull from an RSS feed, always updated. You just have to specify that URI to pull from. If you need a little bit more flexibility than just the XML in the header tag, you can use JavaScript. So we just say document at events listener. We have an event called MS site pinned, and we have a function that's going to fire. You specify that URI. That way you can customize it. So if you know about their session, you know who's logged in, you can specify that polling URI to provide that query string data to your service to customize the tile that's generated, so you can have completely personal tiles from the website, and super easy. Window.external, and most of the APIs you've seen, they just work right here. The local WinRT APIs will just work from a website. Kind of neat, and it works obviously, by using external, it's just talking to the browser, so you don't have to worry about this breaking on Chrome, for example. So some key takeaways to kind of recap what we locked. Tiles are the best unobtrusive notification today. We also have now with Action Center, we do have what we call Ghost Toast. So you can send a notification immediately to the notification center if you want. You can replace those. But tiles remain the best way to just satisfy kind of a snacking urge. Templates are great. We encourage you to render a PNG if that makes sense. The same templates look great on both of our platforms. Browse the template catalog. It's live on MSDN today. You can use the simulator to kind of play with those. You can just paste in the XML, see what the tile looks like. It's a great way to just quickly experiment and find the tile that makes sense for you. Take advantage of the easy polling. You don't have to set up a background task anymore. Just set up a URI to poll. Windows Phone Silverlight, fully supported, and light up your website if that makes sense. So just do kind of what everyone else happens to be doing and just transform their RSS feed into the tile schema, and then now you get free pin sites. The challenge to you is I love my start screen. I spend a lot of time on this. I like my tiles. Make me pin you, right? That's the kind of key takeaway here. Make a good, even if you don't use live tiles, make sure your tile looks beautiful. Like I care a lot about my setup, and with the new denser screen, I want to get more tiles on there. Just make sure you're making a first impression. This is the primary entry point into your app. And thank you for coming. Please see the evals. If you have questions, please come up to the mic. Thank you. I don't think I got speakers to give away, so hopefully everyone got their fill of the speakers last time. So I didn't put my blog up there. My Twitter handle is at Matt Heidinger. Let me go back real quick. So if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I would love to talk to everybody who has needs for tiles. We're in the middle of obviously planning any next release, whatever it may be. If you have needs beyond what we're offering today, please contact me after this.
Hey man, how's it going? Is there any way to scale remote assets? So like if you had multiple images and like hosted on a web server somewhere, can the device go get the right one for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're specifying a tile for one image, in the tile XML, you can say add image query.
Okay.
And we will, when we see that in your tile payload, we will add a bunch of query string parameters to that remote URI that includes the device DPI, what scale you should return, also the contrast settings of that device. Oh, cool. So if you're returning remote images and you want to make sure they're high contrast images remotely, you just have to inspect those query string parameters. We add them to the remote URI automatically.
Awesome, great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Awesome. You get to your next session early. Oh, sorry. Okay, people are coming up.
Do we have to worry about sizing images whether there are 2 columns or 3 columns? I can imagine images getting slightly squashed when they go to 2. Is that something you've seen?
No, the aspect ratios have stayed the same. So you won't, do you mean on Windows Phone specifically?
Yeah, Windows Phone specifically.
Yeah, it's the same dimensions. So the same scale factor will be applied. I think you might lose like 1 pixel in certain scenarios on the huge devices, but you won't need to worry about it. So okay. Same will work for the 3-column layout and the 2-column layout.
And so a separate question. At the moment, I've got Background Agent for a Silverlight app doing lots of work generating images from XAML. Is there a way to get the XAML background render from a universal app to work with a Silverlight 8.1 app? So
you have a Silverlight background agent.
Yep. And
you want to use it from a universal app?
No. So I've got a Silverlight 8.0 app. Which has a background agent which is just doing the generating images for tiles, but obviously has lots of memory issues because that's the way of the world. Obviously, I'd like to use the XAML background renderer, but I don't want to take the app from Silverlight to a universal app because that's more work. I want to just get the improvement for the generating the XAML. So the image from XAML.
If you've updated to Silverlight 8.1, you should be able to use the new XAML rendering background task. You can write modern background tasks, the Windows-style background tasks, and use the Silverlight APIs in there if you want to use variable or the new XAML rendering one. You should be able to still use that as long as you've set your notification service to WNS. Does that make sense? You should be able to do what you're trying to do.
So you need to set the notification service even if I'm not sending any push notification?
That's my understanding, yes, for modern background tasks to work. But you should talk to Sean Henry or find him, or I'll put you in touch with him, but he owns kind of the background tasking devotion. I'm not exactly sure of the combination of that exactly.
Okay. Right,
Sorry about that one. Find me afterwards, and I'll put you in touch with the right guy.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. I have 2 quick questions. The first one is that when you push a tile for being updated, is it immediate or is it up to the system to when it's going to update it?
It is up to the system. For example, for battery consumption reasons, say we've pulled that URI 17 times and you haven't even turned on the device. We at Turn On the lock screen will typically download tile images if we know where they are on the top of the screen, but sometimes we might not do it. If you're lower on the start screen, you might not download that tile, for example, tile image until you see it on your screen. But you have no programmatic way to know that, but that's just the system will not download it immediately if the device is, say, sleeping.
Okay, like if I wanted to make a counter on the background to push it, I may be skipping some numbers, right? Because it's not up to me.
Oh, no, well, you could try that, but I wouldn't guarantee that. I mean, it's really not something you should, we don't expose that, right? Whatever that policy is, it can change release to release, so I wouldn't, count on what we have today. But theoretically, yeah, that should work.
Okay. And the second is there a limit number for background applications that can be triggered by a push notification? It's like
each raw notification will only invoke one background task.
But is there a number of is there a limit of the numbers of apps that can be registered to receive to be triggered on background by push notifications?
Not to my knowledge, but Saral, do you know, is there a number of background tasks? There may, unfortunately, I'm not the background task expert, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But I'm not aware of a limitation. There may be one, especially, say, on low-cost devices. But unfortunately, sorry, I don't know the exact number.
That's okay. Thank
Cool.
you.
Yep. Are you asking a question or leaving? Okay.
In the keynote, the Cortana live tile was an animated tile?
Yeah.
Or was it a custom animation?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
something
pretty cool
that's going to
tile.
be supported for
So it's feedback we hear all the time, right? Yeah. Like we get templates are, not everyone wants to fit into a template, and PNGs are kind of heavyweight. They take some bandwidth. What Cortana does is a first-party thing. It's certainly something we are exploring.
Cool.
And opening up. Yep. Cool. If there are no other questions, please find me whenever. I'll be around the conference again, Matt Heidinger, and we're again in planning mode. So if you need things from tiles or from the start screen in Windows and Windows Phone, please see me. Thank you.